Welcome to the Wednesday afternoon meeting. I understand we got a line cutter.
Thank you, Commissioners. Jessica Warren, Human Resources. Ryan had a request that he would like to make today on one of his potential employees that's coming on board.
So we have an individual we would like to bring on in our office specialist position. Our office currently only has 2 office specialists, 1 the front desk person, 2 a part-time employee. Everyone else for support staff is legal specialist and or paralegal. So our hiring somebody for office specialists primarily at the front desk. We've held multiple interviews with this individual. That particular position has a salary range of $34.55 a month at step 1 up to step 7 of $4,064. Each increment is approximately $100 a month, each step, which is another issue in and of itself. But nonetheless, we would ask for the ability to offer her step 5, which is $38.61 a month, which is about $46,000. In my research, Jessica can correct me if I'm wrong, but I probably do need to, in the near future, spend some time looking at support staff salaries, because this might be the lowest paying job in the county. We're close.
Close to, yeah.
The particular individual that we want to offer step 5 to, young woman who has 11 to 12 years of experience at one of our local banks that is not Fiber Federal. So sorry, credit unions. But her experience has encompassed all of Red Canoe, everything from loans to customer service to the call center. Probably all of which is very relevant to our front desk position, which is dealing with the public, dealing with calls, dealing with paperwork, pleadings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So though no direct legal experience, which isn't necessarily required for the front desk to start off with, she has pretty vast experience with customer service and a lot of things of which that position does. And so we'd like to offer her step 5, not only because of her experience that after multiple interviews with her, we think will fit in well, but also kind of given where this position is comparatively speaking to almost all county employment. And it's still coming in less than what she was making at the credit union.
So I might not have caught it when you started your presentation. You're just filling a vacancy, or is this adding?
It's a filling vacancy, yes.
Okay.
The request is to start her at step 5 versus step 1.
Which is approximately just under, from step 1 to 5, it's just under $400 a month. That's the difference. And I can answer any additional questions.
I'm good with it. The only question that comes about, I've learned as we've done this, it sometimes creates a domino effect. We do somebody and then we're going, wow, we got these people over here or there. Do you have any?
Like within my office,
Yeah.
I think you can always evaluate people within your office, and I think you'll always have people. I've created that issue with some things where, I have promotion's not the right word, but, provided credit where credit is due. But with respect to this particular position, this would still be pay less than the next bump up, which would be legal specialist step 1. So it's still getting paid less than anybody else in the office.
I bring it up not as it's a great concern of mine. I just, as a heads up, if it does, I wouldn't mind knowing ahead of time, but.
Yeah, if we were to change the office specialist salary grade, it would affect other departments, but in this case, we're just changing the steps, so it wouldn't.
Okay. I think we're good with it. I don't see any objection, right? Okay.
And I guess I should rephrase how I said it, up to step 5.
Okay,
Thank you, commissioners.
thanks.
Savannah, who's that stranger that's here? I haven't seen him for.
Higher orientation.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Well, on board today, my first meeting as a commissioner. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Moss, Public Services Director. We have a fairly light agenda today because we have an executive session we'd like to start the meeting with, since we have an attorney that'll be joining us online for that executive session.
Okay.
We're asking for 20 minutes to start with. It may go a little bit longer, but contract negotiations for 20 minutes.
So contract negotiations, 20 minutes, and we want to do that right now.
If we could, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 15 minutes until 2:18.
Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. We'll continue with Public Works agenda. Wow, time goes by. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. We'll start off with the Cougar restroom update. I think we're there. We got agreement from our attorney and Pacific Core. They all agree. I sent it back to Pacific Core on Monday. They're finalizing the document, signing it and sending it back to the county. I'm asking permission today for from you guys to have me sign the contract. I'll put it on the consent agenda once it's signed. That way we can get it going fairly quickly and hopefully meet with Pacific Core next week, get keys and get the restrooms opened up. So between risk management and Doug Jensen, we've got the agreement to where we'd like it. And luckily for us, Pacific Core agreed to those changes.
So when a constituent gives us a call, we can tell them that March 25th?
Into March. Yeah. I don't want to give you an exact date because I haven't received a signed document back from them, but they said
Okay,
they said they'd get it to me this week, and then if you guys give me permission to sign, I'll sign it and put it on the consent. And then we'll immediately open up the restrooms.
By the end of this month, then is what
Correct.
you think?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you subbing it out to somebody local or are you going to have a county employee drive back and forth?
Currently, we're going to have Pacific Parks Department go up there twice a week. We're already requesting a price from Celix, who is our vendor here at the county for cleaning our restrooms, to see how much it costs for them to go up there twice a week. We'll get that price and then we'll probably reach out maybe to somebody in the Cougar area for pricing to clean restrooms. To initially get it open, we're going to use our staff, our park staff for the first month or so. So we have visited with Alyssa Dunn and she looked at the frequencies that were on the sheet back from Pacific Core, how often we need to go up there and what needs to be done. She's okay with what they provided. Short term. And that contract is only through 2024.
I appreciate what you've done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We don't have any trouble with Mike signing this, right?
No
No.
problems.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
We have, Savannah Clement, Cowlitz County Public Works. We do have some quick items to go over. We don't have a lot of time. I know you guys have a scheduled 2:30. So I wanted to just give the board an opportunity to, flush out a couple requests that I plan to bring to the Wednesday workshop next week.
Thought we just solved the restroom issue.
Yes, I'd like to give you guys some handouts. We don't have a lot of time. Thank you, Mike. there's 3 requests on here. I've already touched base with the auditor's office and copied Kathy Funk Baxter on our request, but I did want to flush some things out with the board prior to making more of a formalized request next week. I'm asking the board to earmark some ARPA funds. One earmark is from direct qualification, which is that, or excuse me, revenue replacement, which is the overlay of the tennis courts and basketball courts at Riverside Park, which we have talked about with the board several times, Alyssa Dunn and myself. So that would be approximately $100,000 based upon our quotes with tax. Actually, we're hoping to be a little less, but for earmarking purposes, that's like what we would like to request. And the other 2 are under direct qualifications, which is that infrastructure side of ARPA funds. Originally, Parks had made a request of $200,000, which the board did approve previously. In getting some quotes, looking at play structures, and then also looking towards creating a pump track feature at Riverside Park, Alyssa would like to make an additional request of $400,000 for a total of $600,000 for a legacy park infrastructure built at Riverside Park. I've included some pictures. I was hoping to have a couple more minutes, but I'm going to bring it up again next week. The play structure on the front page is the one that the board has already approved purchase of. So in addition to that will be several smaller play structures that are indicated on the second page of the map. And as you can see, it's a lot more than just a single structure, which would account for the additional fund request. And just again, high level, this $600,000 is actually only half of what we foresee to be the total cost. This would be our match with additional grant funds from RCO. That was a lot. Again, I will be back next week to give the board some time to review and digest some of this information. And I will come with Alyssa Dunn as well for follow-up questions.
I don't recall whether, well, we have the money.
We do. I was waiting to make these requests until our quarterly update from the auditor's office, and that's why I reached out to them to ensure they were okay with these potential requests moving forward. And they were, but they are going to be here next Wednesday when we make our formal request. So there is money available. There's not, actually, I left my stuff back there. There's approximately if you look at revenue replacement, of $100,000. We'll have a little bit more, I think another $80,000 in that revenue replacement fund after that in ARPA funds. And thank you. That helps. So we'll have $72,000 left, according to this last worksheet from the auditor's office, from revenue replacement funds, if you approve this request. Moving into direct qualifications, it looks like we'll have about, if you approve the total request, including the water sewer, which I haven't gotten to, I think there'll be about 900,000 left from direct qualifications if the board were to approve that request. Sorry, this is rushed, but the third request is for a water sewer meter replacement project. Now, this cost is an estimate, again, rough estimate of $550,000, which will include a complete meter replacement of all of our water meters in our water sewer system. This would be under the direct qualification as well. I will have more information on this next week. The reason we would decided to do this request via ARPA funds is because this large overhaul would not affect our ratepayers, because it would be ARPA funded. Our meters, about 2/3 of our meters are over 10 years old. We need to replace them. They are manual reads. So we have a company that goes around and physically reads these meters. What we're looking to replace these with are auto reads. So they have antennas on them, and we can just drive by the location and get the reads. It would be under the efficiency side of direct qualification. So we're looking to increase our efficiency in our reads and how we're using our water and conserving our water. So I know that was a lot. I didn't plan on doing it that rushed, but I know you guys have folks waiting. So I will be back.
So 1 and 2 refer to Riverside Park, which
Correct.
I think is just going to get busier with the growth out in Lexington. I can't see it going any other way. And the third is updating some equipment.
Mhm. Yes, or water sewer meters. Mhm.
We'll have to remember the technique of bringing this up when there's not enough time to discuss it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I cut in front of Susan.
great method.
So Hog Island is off the list for,
No, not at all. I'm sorry. So Hog Island is not off the list. It's just not going to be under ARPA funds. We actually plan on doing some improvements. I mentioned last week. We're moving forward. The guys are out today actually working out at Hog Island.
We're improving the parking areas, removing stumps, moving garbage today with crews.
Mhm.
And we'll be
You want
done.
me to take my machine down there?
Please, come on, yes, come on down. I believe you guys kind of heard last week, we're getting pricing on pit toilet for out
Mhm.
there. And once we get it all leveled out, we'll bring some rock in probably the next couple of weeks to
Yep.
finish it off for at least the fishermen out there.
You know, we were talking about fishing out there, and I drove by the other day, and actually, the wildlife guy was
They're out.
sitting out there. I assumed he was monitoring what was going on.
Yeah, the crew said there was already, there was a couple boats that launched this morning from that site
Mhm.
when they're out there working.
Mhm. And the board did make kind of a request to touch base with the property owner across the way there. And I did touch base with our supervisor out there to do that. They were aware of who it was. So.
Cool.
Thank you.
thanks.
I'll be back.
We'll give you some before and after pictures of Hog Island too. And we have Susan here to give you a quick update on Tootle Park Road.
So good afternoon, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. I'll talk fast like Savannah and we can talk about it more. I need the back one because I scribbled on it. And I don't need my notes. There you go. So as all of you are probably aware, the Tootle is moving towards Tootle Park Road out by LT1. Excuse me. So we're looking at a couple options and approaches to what we can do to remedy the situation. So if the road washes out, it cuts access to the gun range and about 3 residents. So the map Mike handed out, I clouded the area that's threatened. And one of the options we're looking at, so basically your 2 options are stabilize the river or abandon the road and put an alternate route in. So the red line up towards the top of the map would be an alternate route into the gun range, and it would be coming right off the end of Burma and going past Warehouser's facility and then entering LT1. So to be brief, the progress I've made on this, I have a meeting about in a week and a half from now with Weyerhaeuser to start discussing this, if that is something that they would even consider us taking over the road in front of their place, making it just extending Burma and reestablishing access coming down and around. In addition to that, I was on a meeting today with a representative from the Corps of Engineers talking about their program, the Continuing Authorities Program, Section 14, which is for emergency stream bank and shoreline protection. It's authorized congressionally. I'll give you some quick highlights and then I have a question. So the process itself, I won't go through all the steps since we're short on time. So their emergency shoreline process takes about 2 years to get to construction. If you manage to be one of the projects that they approve, they have $25 million a year approximately for this program. And the projects are limited to 10 million. And so it's a national competition. So you have to submit a letter, then they approve it, then you go through, if it's approved, you have to come to the federal cost sharing agreement. And that process then moves you into a feasibility study. And then if the feasibility study has an alternative that meets their program requirements, they will pay for it on the cost share of 65/35 a basis. And I have questions out because of course, you know, when you leave a meeting, you think of all the good questions to ask, like what happens if the road disappears in the middle of the process? Do we then stop the process and go to FEMA? Is it off the table? If our cheapest alternative is this road relocation, would they still pay for it, or does that just reverse back to the county? So I have more questions out for the Corps. So my question for you guys, for you gentlemen, is do you want me to continue proceeding this direction, or do you want me to just say the Corps is going to take too long and we'll just pay for the alternate route? And because I'm rushing, we can talk about it again next week, and maybe I'll have some more answers to some of the questions that popped into my head that I'm sure you're thinking about.
I'm not, looking at the, you know, the maps, Mike provided me with the year's progression and the way that river has been moving and especially now because it's almost an eddy in there, the way it swirls. I'm not sure that'll last 2 years before it takes out the road.
And that was why after the meeting, I thought, I should have asked that question. If the road goes away, what happens then? Are we still eligible, or do we have to start a different process?
So if you built the access off of Burma Road,
Mhm.
would those 3 private homes be allowed access to that road in case their roadway in front of their houses go away?
And that was part of the process in the question. So if we went off the end of Burma Road, would we get an easement just for the gun range, or would they be willing for us to make it a public road in front of them? And so those people could then, we would build them an access on the LT1 site for them to have off of their driveway. Or if you look at the map down towards the bottom, there is a larger driveway just to the west of where the threatened area is that could potentially, we could negotiate with those, I believe it's 3 off of there, to establish a private road for all of those people. So that's an alternative that we can discuss also, depending on how my meeting with Weyerhaeuser goes. So they'd access to the west, kind of at the back of their lots. Unfortunately, with the labels on there, you can't see it well on this map. You see it.
Yeah. I just, it seems to me, I don't think that it's gonna still be there in 2 years, so I don't know what,
But the
I
work,
think you're gonna have to talk to Weyerhaeuser.
but the work needs to happen eventually. I mean, the Corps is going to have to take care of that eventually. But in the meantime, let's go forward with the road off of Burma.
Well,
Or
this is private property it's eroding. It's not county property, right? It
Correct.
doesn't really get to us till it takes out our road.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the Corps will come in and make the private property owner whole. I don't know.
So Section 14 program will not. It is authorized for public property only, or not for profit. So or not for profit hospitals, public facilities, and schools and lighthouses. That was newly added, I was told. So.
So they may not grant this anyway because it's not our property.
Well, I asked that question and they said, well, if it's threatening our property, we would have to purchase or get rights to be able to do work on that property. And one of my questions back to them, thinking back to the Mount St. Helens dredge spoil sites, when that process was going on, the state, as the non-federal sponsor, was required to obtain all of the property rights on their dollar only. They do not cost share in that portion of it.
What do you think is the most viable fix? Or the most probable fix?
I believe this river is a toddler and it's going to go where it wants to go. And that fixing rivers is a difficult and questionable practice in some locations, especially when they aren't fully diked. I do know that if we build a different access that is not against the river, it's not going to disappear. Now, can I make that happen before it disappears? I can't tell you. And yeah, so it's, and the fix, because of the height of that drop, is going to be very expensive. And so I think the road alternative is going to be the cheaper option. And I think then the Corps does this study, they're going to come out with that conclusion, which is why I asked them if that's the conclusion, will you still pay, or is that the county's dollars only? And if it's the county's dollars only, it would be more efficient for us to go ahead and move that way and not go through the process. So that was why I was doing some of those follow-up questions.
So the property ownership, according to this map, though, does include county, just the edge of the county.
So yes.
The right third or the right quarter of the bubble
Yeah,
is that large lot is county owned.
Yes, this big, large lot that is the county, but just to the majority of that bubble is private property that goes out and crosses the river. And they're the homes that are on the opposite side of the road.
Homes aren't threatened yet.
No, not yet.
And the lots closest to the shooting range aren't threatened, but chances are if we put the road into our parking lot, they'll use it for access.
Down there, yes.
Sure. Yeah. So when you extend Burma Drive,
Mm-hmm.
will you put little signs up with jingles?
With jiggles?
Jingles,
Oh, jingles.
yeah, the Burma shape signs. No,
Sorry.
engineers.
No, we're just stuck in the muds.
Yeah, I'm okay with doing that alternate route.
You guys good with that? It's hard to see a better option.
There's actually an easier option. You just give the keys to your largest excavator to our chairman and he'll fix it for you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll probably end up upside down in the river.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any last things before we move into? We're pleased to have the Gifford Pinchot with us here again today. We enjoyed the last visit, so we're looking forward to spend a little time with you today also. And
You're on.
you guys got some washout issues and stuff too, right?
You need to make sure you're close so that you can hear a little bit of an echo from your voice. Go ahead and move it right up close to your lips.
I think I need to push the button.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the instructions. Good afternoon. I'm glad to be back with you all here, Cowlitz County this afternoon. I'm Johanna Kovarik. I'm the forest supervisor. Got the opportunity to meet you all in June in this very location. And then Dennis, I've seen you at a few of the collaborative meetings and in some other spots, but like I said, glad to be back here. And the intention for today was to introduce John Gellings, who is our permanent Mount St. Helens district ranger there on Mount St. Helens Volcanic Monument. So give you an opportunity to hear from him and get to know him a little bit and start to build a relationship with him. And then to provide some updates on the monument and answer any additional questions that you might have for us this afternoon.
Perfect.
Hello, I'm John Gellings. I'm the Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument and Ranger District Ranger. So, happy to be here. I've met you before, Dennis. It's good to see you again. And I am pleased to be here. So, with that, we can go into a little bit of who I am and why I'm here and what I see for the future. So, what drew me to this area was, the iconic mountain and what it stands for in a lot of people's, minds as well as on the landscape. And I'm hopeful that, moving into the future, we can somehow learn to plan around this feature on the landscape in the best way that we can. I know there's been a lot of efforts over a long time that precede me, but I'm hopeful that I can be a beneficial part of that into the future as well. So what also drew me to it is, the monument itself being there for the protection of the resources as well as the natural processes, because, there are very few places that actually are designated for that. Wilderness areas are some of them, but outside of strict wilderness areas, it's pretty difficult to find those throughout the United States and in the world these days. And on top of that, all the research opportunities that are out there, being able to see the landscape itself rebound from such a devastating explosion that took out a lot of things and people's livelihoods. It's an astounding place, and I'm honored to be here and being able to carry that forward. So beyond that, as you're well aware of the road washouts and other components that come with a volcanic landscape, there's a lot of damage to the infrastructure that's ongoing, because when a lot of these things were funded after the monument was established, there were ongoing bits and pieces to fixing up and keeping the infrastructure, Johnston Ridge Observatory, Coldwater Science and Learning Center, as well as on the opposite side of the monument and down in Pine Creek and in Amboy and all of the areas that wind its way up into the monument for the roads. And we've gotten to a point where a large set of unfortunate circumstances have taken out a lot of the access as well as abilities for us to house employees to be on the landscape to efficiently fix a lot of these different detrimental conditions. And so what I'm hoping I'm able to do in partnership with all of our concessionaires and permittees and partners and contractors and the forest leadership team, as well as our employees, is to move the trajectory in more, or in a different way that we can hopefully tackle some of these issues that we've got out there. Because very rarely, and I've been in lots of meetings over the past several months since I started, has it occurred where all of these things are happening all at once. So with the 504 road, we getting washed out repeatedly in 1 year, let alone the 25 road on the east side being washed out. And then even last winter, as we were seeing it in the beginning of December, down by Cougar, the the spur of 503 getting washed out. It's pretty difficult to be able to feel like you're doing something.
Yeah.
And so I'm hopeful that, and we've seen some progress in the paperwork world moving forward over the past few months to get several of these things fixed up where we can, create some progression into fixing of the infrastructure. That way we can attract more employees to the area, because we've seen rent increases and salary stagnation. There's on occasion some bumps up, but it's hard to convince people to move to an area or to take jobs that are not keeping up with inflation. So with all of that in consideration, I'm still hopeful, and I will be cautiously optimistic for quite some time, trying to, make some of these small check marks turn into bigger check marks.
I had an opportunity to be back in Washington DC and chat with our representatives and stuff. And of course, we always talk about the mountain sediment, and I always describe it as this: we have this incredibly unique feature, or this unique system in our backyard, and it brings a lot of good, but it also has a lot of liability that we have to deal with that probably others don't see just because of what it is. So how you deal with all that. And it sounds like you were saying some breakthroughs in paperwork. Is that, can I interpret that Forest Service may be looking at putting a little more funds out this way, or reallocating, or how, what do we mean on that?
So on some of the project work that we have, we're getting contracts put into our procurement system. And before I started here, I actually worked on the procurement and property side of
Okay.
the Forest Service. So I used to have a $25 million warrant to be able to actually sign contracts up to that amount. And so having seen a lot of the paperwork that goes into those and the effort that it takes from our engineering staff, as well as our contracting officer representatives, our budget officers, and just the forest system in general, to get those pieces of papers and documents, like I was saying, to move forward to actually getting action on the ground. I'm hopeful that, with all of these different processes as they've been lined out for us, that those funds that we do have that are committed for those, we're actually able to obligate into some action on the ground starting this summer. So
That'd be great. Do you see yourself back over in Johnson Ridge, or you expect this next summer you still be in Clearwater?
For this summer and likely the next summer and probably the one after that, through 2026, we're not likely going to be able to get up to Johnson Ridge Observatory and open it up, because with State Route 504 being washed out. So that happened in May. The temporary road, if this is a refresher, I apologize, but yeah, the temporary access was put in and everybody was able to be evacuated, included the rental vehicles last July. And then in the last few days of October last year, the bedding of the temporary fix around the newly installed culverts. There were two pretty big culverts that they put in to direct the water, and the bedding eroded out of there, and that culminated in culvert failure, which undermined the road itself. And so when we found that as an issue, we abruptly stopped accessing across it and worked with our state counterparts to figure out a long-term solution, as well as provide, continued public safety, because I'm glad that, the decision was made before I got here to continue to keep the public off of that temporary access last year. And one of the reasons was to ensure that the temporary fix was going to be able to withstand all the pressures exerted upon it in such a dynamic landscape. And we saw that it wasn't able to, so we were able to avert an additional evacuation as well as recovery of the vehicles in the beginnings of winter. But with that comes, looking more towards the permanent fix. And the permanent fix costs more and it takes more time because there's a bunch of drilling that's going to need to, or at least geotechnical investigations that are going to need to be performed that will inform the design work that can then go into that new bridge that's going to take a while to get put
That
out
was
there.
one of the things I wouldn't say argued for, but brought to attention was some of that drilling that was actually ordered like 7 years ago or something to get that completed, so you know what you're dealing with
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah, I think some of that drilling might be over on the 99 extension gate fix side, because there's also some drilling work going on over there on the Spirit Lake side, but yeah, both sides in this case.
Still pretty good visitation rates. I mean, even though they're can't get to Johnson, it seems like they're still headed up the other.
It's definitely been reduced, and there's a lot of businesses that rely upon the visitation that Johnson Ridge provided. We're having a more difficult time ensuring that the messaging across all the different organizations, as well as on the highway going up there, when it says Johnson Ridge Observatory closed, people that were expecting to go up there on their vacations, they were potentially taken aback and decided to go do something else. And so we've been working with DOT in order to change that to reflect that there are other opportunities up there,
Yeah.
like the Forest Learning Center, Coldwater Science and Learning Center. And
That's
there's,
the only thing that's really closed is Johnson Ridge. You can still get to the lake and all that other
correct.
stuff around there. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate in our partnership with Mount St. Helens Institute that we've been able to work together to provide visitor service at the Coldwater Science and Learning Center. And so I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I know they're still receiving quite a bit of visitation during the year. And that's a focus area for us with public affairs and in partnership with Washington State Department of Transportation to make sure that as we go into kind of more of the public use season, that we're consistently messaging that the monument is open and that there are opportunities out there for folks to get out and to see the mountain and to recreate there on the monument. So like I said, a focus area, definitely something that's top on our minds as we go into the visitation season.
Have the helicopter operators started back up yet, or they used to fly, as a tourist activity, they used to fly helicopter, provide rides. But
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but I'm going to look into that one. I'm not surprised to hear that, but I don't recall there being any tourist operations. There've definitely been some, I think,
they used, if I remember correctly, they used to fly out of the Hofstadt Bluffs Visitor Center when we operated that, but that's been
Okay.
sold, and so I don't think they've found a new location.
yeah, I know that there've been some other operations just with research and those kinds of things, but in terms of recreationally, I don't think so, but now I'm curious.
Yeah, I know that at Eco Park, they have the little sign on the side of the road that has a helicopter on there, but I haven't seen anything either, so.
Yeah, one of the things I did want to mention related to the monument in the county is I really wanted to share a lot of gratitude and kudos for Larry Hembry, who is the emergency manager. I believe he stepped into the role last spring, and then working with him through the South Coldwater Slide into the prep work this past January. We've had a lot of good meetings and conversations and are really moving things forward in terms of relationships, not only within Cowlitz County, but across up into Lewis and then over into Skamania, building relationships, reinforcing communication. That's been a really great effort this past year, and huge thanks to Larry for his work on that.
Good.
I always have a lot of questions. I'm wondering which angle I was going to take on which questions. One thing I'm always interested in is using current technology for the data gathering. And without paying attention to the dollars, which I know we can't do, we've got the means to look at that area and take certainly snapshots with all kinds of technology on a weekly basis. So, you don't see the changes that occur because you're there every day, but when you look at a week and then and so on, and so you've got the potential there to gather both flora and fauna and geography or topography. Are you doing that?
So the question that I'm hearing is, it sounds like you're asking about monitoring.
If
On the
my
monument?
hearing aids are being repaired, so it's a little harder for me to hear you.
Fair enough. So what you're asking about is monitoring and research on the monument in particular. Is there a specific area or just across the monument that you're thinking about?
If I could predict, I would say I would pick the spot, but I think that whole area is so darned interesting that,
Yeah.
And you really don't know what's going to get washed out next week.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Yeah, okay, that helps. Yeah, so there's some work that the Forest Service is doing, but a lot of the research that's occurring on the monument is with partners. So US Geological Survey is doing quite a bit, as well as independent researchers. And I'll let John jump in here in a minute because I know he's met with the research group. But yeah, a lot of that work in terms of looking at the higher resolution LiDAR data that we have, as well as just weather patterns and all of that. US Geological Survey has a lot of that data and has instruments up not only on Mount St. Helens, but around the area to map and kind of keep track of some of those things you're talking about. On some level, though, there are enough nuances and pieces that it's hard to predict, right? I mean, the landscape up there, as John said, is so dynamic that, we know that there's going to be a slide, but we don't always know where, right, and when, which is the crucial piece. So there's a lot of that good work that's being done in partnership with us. And like I said, US Geological Survey has a lot of that data, I think probably even available on their website. And then independently, there are a lot of researchers doing work on the monument. So I'm going to pass it over to John to talk a little bit about his experience speaking with the research groups. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's beyond like the public hazards and mass wasting and landscape movement types of research. There's also, as you were talking about with the flora and fauna, there's a lot of differences. I didn't realize this beforehand, but there's a lot of differences between each of the little tiny ponds that are along the Hummocks Trail specifically. And so each of them have their own compositions within the water itself that lend themselves to either being more or less conducive to a living environment for even microbiota as well as, bigger organisms. I think that, once you get to charismatic megafauna and where you got elk and deer, I think they don't necessarily, and, I'm not necessarily bringing a scientific perspective into this part, but I don't know if they necessarily care as much as, say, the little bugs do down there.
Yeah, you've identified lots of interesting things, and sort of my point is that it is typically vastly undersampled in space and in time. And there is an opportunity here. I am appalled by how, got to be careful I say, how the Army Corps of Engineers doesn't really say, wow, you know what, how many other volcanoes have done this or that and so forth, and we ought to be treated like with golden gloves. It's like, wow, this laboratory it's just precious, and we're watching.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we treat it as if, well, how about a bridge over here to nowhere? And it's okay, so let me change on that. tourism is a double-edged sword, as we well know. And we can all think about areas that used to be rather attractive at one time and now just become pretty hard to deal with. How do you have a master plan or thought of how much tourism you really do want and can sustain before the cause for the tourism goes away because now it's just everything else again? By that, I mean, if you think about the Finger Lakes area in upstate New York, that used to be a place where tourists would go, and now it's become just one hamburger stand after another kind of thing. And it's like, okay, so there's a lake there, and I'd really like to get to it, but I can't. And I worry a good deal about that. Coupled with that, I've done hiking up in Paradise, which is a similar delicate ecosystem, and there are clearly signs that say, stay on the trail. And I'm chasing people, particularly the foreigners, don't seem to give a damn. And I've seen this in the US and elsewhere. So, and the volcano is really an attractive site. So I don't think there's any answer, but I encourage that we understand that gradual destruction will occur.
Yeah, I appreciate that statement and question. And I think you've really eloquently outlined, the mission that we hold as the Forest Service, right? And you mentioned a plan. We have our forest plan, there's the monument plan, it's the action plan, and all of it really illuminates holding the balance, right, between providing access and recreation and opportunities for folks, but also, as you mentioned earlier, really caring for the opportunity that we have here with research, right? And so thinking about how to provide those opportunities in education and recreation while preserving those opportunities that we have for research, right? And so I have a lot of confidence and interest in our partnership with Mount St. Helens Institute, where we can provide some more of those pointed opportunities for folks and some of the plans that they have to grow recreation in a way that is really thoughtful and sustainable. And again, supporting that spectrum of education while preserving opportunities for research. They have some really great programs that they're doing right now. Together with our own folks. And I think that the plans that were developed for JRO as well as Coldwater really speak to that balance and that mission. And so as we move forward into the next 10 years, the next 25 years, continuing to be thoughtful about that and reassessing where we need to do so as the landscape changes. I think we're sitting in a place right now to kind of sit with our partners and with the public and look at where we are and think about where we want to be in the next 20, 25 years, given the changes that we're seeing. So yeah, I appreciate both of those things that you brought up, and they're really right in line with the core of the responsibility that we have for stewardship on the monument.
A thing that might help is technology. Again, you can pretty economically put up trail cameras and trying to network them in so you can see when I've just seen a lot of people do bad things. And so speaking of bad things, Johnston Ridge facility is a rather attractive, nice facility. It's all closed up now, right? Do you inspect that frequently to make sure it hasn't been vandalized, or how are you protecting it?
Right now, because it's winter up there, we have not been up there to really assess what's happened over the winter. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that that's kind of the general operating procedures, every year is winterize it and then go up and start getting it ready for visitors. Because it's a unique situation right now also, where when the 504 road got washed out, it also severed the power line that was within the bridge. And so it's also without power. So that compounds the potential for some damage, whether it's human caused or nature caused. So So we're looking into ways to be able to reestablish that power as well as the fiber optic that runs up there to have the communication systems working. Because if we can get those reestablished, then we have a better chance of keeping the conditions of the facility in as good of repair as possible. And then also that comes with the ability to provide more security systems via telemetry, or, walking up there. If we have a known issue, we're then able to go up there without the use of the road, because there's nothing that we have that can, put a bridge in right now. Or, give that access to us with a vehicle. So it's an interesting time. I'll say that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
say that I think that not having easy vehicle access means that it's less of a attraction in some ways. It's a little bit harder to get to for somebody that we're.
I think probably for my colleague and certainly for me, the loss of Hofstad Bluff was a bit of a hard pill to swallow.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'd forgotten that it cut off power and stuff, that without any climate control buildings, don't always react well. You might have a herd of elk living in the.
At least they would, they would provide some heat.
Yeah.
And just, I hope all the pipes were drained out of every place there. Thank you.
From your perspectives, has the collaborative been able to meet your needs? Is it serving its purpose to achieve improvements?
So having been here about a year now and interacting with the collaborative, especially, I would say exactly a year ago was the large workshop. And I'm really happy that it exists, that we have such a group of diverse individuals from a diversity of organizations and from the community. It's really valuable to have such a group intentionally working together. And as we move forward with larger projects such as the long-term outflow planning project, having that group together to be able to share what's going on and to give us feedback is really, it's really important. So I think that where we've been at in our planning processes and where we've been at with different projects, we haven't had a whole lot to bring from the agency side to the table yet. But we're getting there. And I think in the last collaborative meeting, there was a presentation from our contractor in terms of that long-term project. And I think that the ability of the collaborative to work with us and continue to build how they're working together and how we're all working together is really only going to grow in the next year. So, I've seen a lot of growth over the last year since I've been here, and I think we'll continue to see that. So I appreciate the opportunity that exists to work with that collaborative, and I'm glad for participation from folks like yourself on there.
Anything the county can do to help? And in fact, there's not a whole lot of the monument inside Calais County. Of course, the mountain's not in Calais County either. We just get benefits from that mountain on a regular basis.
I think from my perspective, just continuing to stay in communication with us. And I know there's a lot of that on our side too, right? Like showing up here and being in person with you all and providing an opportunity for you to ask us questions. But letting us know if there's something that's come up and you're worried about it, or you're seeing something you don't like, or you're seeing, things that you do like and things are going well, but just really staying deeply in communication. Your support through the work of Larry in terms of making sure that we're prepared for emergencies that occur, because while, the mountain itself is in Skamania County, we all know that the downstream effects are here, right? And so making sure that we're continually investing in that communication and those relationships, seeing where we can work together more frequently and better. Those are the areas that I'm excited about and interested in, and hope to have the county's support as we continue to work together. So that's my focus right now. My top priority really is on that safety piece. That's kind of where a lot of my attention has been in the last year. But I'm also really continually interested in where we can be in community with you all and help the folks that live here in the county know that the monument is theirs, right? It's right here in their backyard. And we really want to grow awareness and education about what resources are there and what opportunities are there. So if you're seeing places where we can show up to share our story about what we've got and you know, what's going on, please, again, just reach out and let us know.
It was about a year ago, wasn't it, that the forest fire was burning? Like the one north of Lake Merrill in that section of the park or the
Oof.
forest.
Most of our fires tend to be kind of in the later season. Last year, our first fire was June 1st, and it was an Iron Creek campground, which is up on Cowlitz Valley Ranger District. But we also had fire in the Kalama area of the forest. So not, you know, Kalama town, but up on the forest near Kalama. And that was probably, gosh, that was 2022, I think fall of 2022.
I've discovered time flies when we're having fun.
I know, right? Yeah. No, I think that was 2022, but it does feel like also in some ways like it was yesterday, right? And so that's a piece of that connection. And we have been working really closely with Washington State DNR, with the agency administrators there. We have a pre-season meeting with them coming up, I think, pretty soon. And I've also been really glad those meetings I'm talking about with Larry and with County Emergency Management, DNR has been right at the table with us with that. And we've started to make some connections with some of the local fire groups as well. And so again, building that communication, collaboration. We've also talked a lot about connection with our public affairs officers at the DNR, but also at the county as well. Again, just so that everybody's getting the information they need when they need it, right? And that including your constituents. And so they haven't, you know, they know if something's happening, where that's at, and if there is any threat. And so Larry's working his side and DNR is working their side, and we're providing what information we can as early as possible. So yeah, definitely that's another piece of this. I think a lot about Spirit Lake, and I'm thinking a lot about debris flow, but also fire. Yeah, absolutely, as we get into the season.
Well, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I think we're all fans of the work you guys do. I think we're all fans of the asset we have and called the Gifford Pinchot and the monument and all that. And I'm pleased to hear that you feel like it's easy to work with us and Larry and hopefully you get the same feeling from us, because I think our intention certainly is to work with you folks. You got to work with a lot. You got Army Corps, you got WashDOT, you got DNR, you got a whole bunch of groups to work with.
We do, but you know,
That's just the state and local agencies.
Yeah.
Other federal agencies.
yeah, it's true. It's true. But you know, we do think it's been a really positive relationship here in Cowlitz County. We want to keep that going.
I'm excited to continue to come to these as well, because even though this is the first one, I've been on occasion like, hey, is there another meeting happening? Can I get there in time? So
We appreciate the interaction. Sometimes we sit here and we don't get to have this opportunity all the time. So we certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. And I know last time I was here, Arn had mentioned that there's some, I think, Wednesday evening meetings. And that's been on my mind too, just to think about where we have some of our experts, some of our scientists, where they can maybe come and use this as a forum to share information more broadly with you all, but also your constituents as well. So that's been on my mind, and I'm sorry we haven't made it to set something up yet, but John and I were just talking about that today, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that this year. One of the things, again, like I said, that's really on my mind is fire and our prevention messages and getting those out to folks in terms of responsibility with campfires and things like that. So there might be some opportunities to bring some of that into this forum too, as we get closer to fire season and camping season.
John? Okay. Perfect. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for the time this afternoon. Good to see you all.
thank you.
John, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Too.
Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, we will adjourn.